What is going on, Governor Chisgule here, and we are back for part 2 of the Do This series on Gathering, where we break down how you can get crazy, insane amounts of resources. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the commanders that you use for Gathering, and I recognize that some of this will change with the upcoming patch, but much of it won't. So we're going to cover all of that material now before we go into it. I should say that if you like this style of video, please do remember to subscribe so you can see the next parts of this series. So with that said, let's start to talk about commanders. There are 7 commanders that I like to use for Gathering. At the epic tier, we have Joan of Arc. At the rare tier, there are 4 commanders that I recommend for Gathering. One of them you might not expect, and that is Tomo. I also use Gaius, Sarka, and Constance. At the advanced tier level, I use the Centurion. And finally, at the legendary level, I am also using and would highly recommend Cleopatra. Now, the reason that I recommend almost all of these commanders is because they have skills that make Gathering go faster. Those skills are typically in the second skill slot. You can see here on Cleopatra that this skill, which I would try to pronounce if I didn't think I would butcher it, is an increase to gathering speed, and it is worth mentioning that 3 of the gathering commanders actually specialize in a type of resource they're trying to gather. I'll talk about that more in a second. Now, these commanders, typically only their second skill is related to gathering speed, and I'm going to argue that the amount of load that they can carry, which is essentially the amount of resources their troops can carry, and the majority of their other skills are all but irrelevant in almost all cases. There are a couple exceptions, and I'll call those out as I go. For Cleopatra, if you had her skills maxed, and let's be real, she's legendary and a gatherer, you won't have her skills maxed, but if you did, she unlocks a expertise skill that gets extra resources from farming on the map. You can see here Joan of Arc's second skill increases the gathering speed. Gaius, his second skill, increases the gathering speed, and he focuses on food. Sarka, second skill, gathering speed. Constance, same story, second skill gathering speed focus on wood, and worth mentioning that her fourth skill is actually exceptional. It gives a resource boost upon completion of gathering at a resource node. We'll talk more about her in a minute. And the third skill on Centurion also gives a gathering speed bonus. Now, why am I mentioning this? You want to max out that gathering speed skill, and you're going to have a harder time doing that if you level them up and unlock further out skills. So let me give an example. I leveled Gaius to 20 too early. I hadn't maxed the second skill yet, and I unlocked the third skill. What that meant is that every time I was skilling him up, it would randomly assign it between these first 3 talents, and that increased the chances that I would get a skill that was not related to gathering speed. All this to say that the thing you should be focusing on is gathering speed with these commanders. Now let's talk for a second about where you can get their sculptures. How do you get the sculptures to level up these skills? Now for most of these commanders it's very straightforward. Your typical places will be keys and events. But there is an exception here, and that is Constance. And this is very, very important that we talk about. Constance is only available in the Expedition store. Let me show you that now. If we go to the expedition and we go to the store, you can see here that Constance is always available to you every single day, but it is 400 currency per sculpture. Now, it would take an unbelievable amount of currency to max out Constance, and personally, I like to use this currency for legendary stars that you see down below. Currently, there aren't any. You can also see I'm accumulating a lot of this expedition currency. I'll talk about this in a second, or in a subsequent video, but I am saving those up to see whatever this mysterious sculpture becomes whenever that becomes available. So all of that to say, the very best way to skill up Constance is to actually use the blue sculptures that you get that can be applied to any commander. There's just one problem, which is that after you hit a certain point of progression in the game, you don't really get those anymore. So leveling up Constance becomes a very, very expensive proposition with regard to her skills. So you can see I have only leveled up her second skill to 3, and that is because it's going to take 20 sculptures to get her to the next level for one of those 2 skills, and that's going to cost me 8,000 currency each time I want to do that. And I probably should just bite the bullet and do that. I haven't, though, because that is the equivalent of a whole heck of a lot of legendary stars. I'd rather have the legendary stars. Anyways, use the sculptures that can be applied to any commander at the blue tier to Constance. So the next thing that we should be looking at, and this is important, is to talk about the talents. And the talent change is about a week away. Talents 2.0 are just around the corner. But until those come out, these talents will be relevant. Now, I wouldn't go and reset your talent build, but let me show you why I am still using Tomo for gathering, even though she has no gathering skills. Now, if we take a look at the talents, Tomo, her skills are oriented toward her being a secondary commander anyways. So if she is always the secondary commander, I may as well have gathering talents on her, because secondary commander talents don't matter. So when I use her for gathering, she is the primary commander. She's already over level 30 for me, which means that I have maxed the talents that are relevant to gathering, and let's just talk about those for a second. There are 4 talents that are crucial for gathering, and those are all related to the gathering speed. The first is related to food, and you can get a 50% buff there. Also wood, 50% buff to gathering speed. Then stone, which requires you to have food and wood maxed. And then finally gold, which requires you to have stone maxed. I always try to send out commanders that have a maxed skill of the thing that they are, or rather a maxed talent for the thing that they are trying to gather, so that I get increased gathering speed and effectiveness there. I typically keep 2 commanders leveled up enough so that they can be the primary commander for gold, 2 commanders leveled up so that they can be the primary commanders for stone, and a couple others that just sort of tag along for the ride. So my friends, I hope that this video has been helpful for crazy, insane resource gathering. I have been in the top 10 in my kingdom for quite some time for resource gathering, which I think is a pretty good indicator that I'm doing something right. If this video has been helpful, please do like, share, and subscribe. As a new content creator, it really does mean a whole heck of a lot to me. And this, my friends, is only part 2 of our gathering series. In part 3, we're going to take a look at how you can farm crazy resources within your town. And part 4, we will probably be talking about the new talents that have been released. Until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.